You've had surgery for endometriosis and you're still in pain, or maybe it was better for a while and then your pain came back. This episode is for you. Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic Podcast, a space for women and women's stories. For the woman just beginning to believe she can actually heal her painful period naturally. For the one in a full on love affair with aligning her entire life with her cycle. And for every woman in between. This is a platform to remember the wisdom that lives in our wombs so that we may actualize the lives of our dreams. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, women's health practitioner specializing in traditional Chinese medicine-based hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling and to learn a little something? Let's dive in. Hey babes, welcome back to Moon Baby Magic. I'm your host, Natalie. I'm so happy you're here. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, which was a virtual consultation with Caitlin, an endometriosis client and wonderful woman, this episode is really inspired by that. So I hear endometriosis being talked about quite a lot, of course, as a common underlying root cause of period pain. A lot of women talking about finally getting diagnosed after years of being misdiagnosed or being told their period pain is just something they have to deal with. And while I really don't think that anyone should have to deal with period pain, and I totally get the value of really wanting that endometriosis diagnosis, I want to break down a little bit what can be happening underneath the endometrial lesions appearing and perhaps provide a different perspective for you, a perspective that is a little more based on something beneath the surface and how you can actually heal in a lasting way so that you don't keep getting surgery over and over again because that's pretty intense and invasive, and I just want better for you, frankly. So I want you to know that if your pain came back after endometriosis surgery, you didn't do anything wrong. Unfortunately, you have been failed by a system that is really only designed to fix problems on the surface and not help you actually understand what's going on that deeper level. I could say root cause level too. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have endometriosis, this doesn't apply to me, this is a really good episode for honestly anyone, because you probably know someone with endometriosis and this will help you understand them a little better. But beyond that, if you do have a period and you deal with period pain, likely the things I'm going to be talking about today are going to be great for you too. So keep tuning in or save this episode away for later or send it to someone you know who has painful periods or perhaps suspected or diagnosed endometriosis. I want you to know the body doesn't do anything randomly. And so that's why we really want to dig a little deeper than just having surgery to diagnose or to even remove endometrial lesions. So, first of all, let's talk about what endometriosis even is. Endometriosis is an inflammatory condition when the endometrial tissue, so the uterine lining, grows outside of the uterus. Endometrial lesions can often be found on the ovaries, on the uterine tubes. You might call those fallopian tubes, but we like to use a little more of a anatomically correct language here. So uterine tubes, on the bladder, or on the bowels. The most commonly talked about is the ovaries. The common symptoms associated with endometriosis are, of course, pain with menstruation, probably pain with intercourse, and pelvic pain as well, which you heard Caitlin speak to on her consultation that was recorded for the last episode. And fertility challenges. It's hard to get pregnant with endometriosis, but of course, not impossible. The only way to get a true diagnosis in the medical system is through exploratory surgery. It's called a laparoscopy. So many women with endometriosis have these symptoms for years before they choose to go to this option, to have the surgery to discover it or to then, even have a surgery to remove the lesions. It's also worth it's also worth really tuning in with yourself if you're like, yes, I deal with all of these symptoms, to really feel into, do I need a diagnosis? And that's sort of an edgy thing to say. I have one client who I've been working with for some time. She's actually pregnant now, and had suspected endometriosis actually confirmed after she got an exploratory surgery. So, yes, of course, I do still work with women who have afoot kind of in this medical model, seeing what that has to offer them, but then also wanting to heal on a root level, you absolutely can get surgery and still heal at the root level because, of course, if you get surgery but it don't address the root cause, it's just going to come back. And this client of mine understood that. So we made steps to work to heal her period pain. She is pregnant now, like I said, which is amazing. But she really went through a lot of steps and a lot of hoops to get a diagnosis, traveling really far distances, really kind of burning out her nervous system. And we did a lot of work to sort of slow down and really ask that question, like, do you really need a diagnosis? And I think that the reason I say that's an edgy question is because we always think we need a diagnosis to heal, but I'm not sure if that's really true. Something that I often ask myself and ask my clients to track for themselves is if the treatment was the same, what would you do? Would you still move forward without needing or with a diagnosis? Or would you think, okay, well, if I can understand this on a different level without needing to get exploratory surgery or engage with a symptom that perhaps a system that perhaps stresses me out, like really tuning in, how do you feel when you talk to a doctor or get results back? Maybe for some of you, you really like having that information and it feels really good. But for others, maybe you're a little bit more like me, and sometimes information overload can really stress you out and spin you out and keep you from actually moving forward in a direction that will support you to get you pain free and keep you pain free. So that's just something to sit with if you haven't before. And when I say, if the treatment was the same, I'm really speaking to the lens that I like to view things through, which is the lens of traditional Chinese medicine or East Asian medicine, or you can even think about this as just like a holistic, natural approach. But specifically in traditional medicine, traditional Chinese medicine or East Asian medicine, there is this understanding of endometriosis. There's multiple roots, but a really common root of it is blood stagnation. And underlying that is usually chi stagnation or emotional stagnation. Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit because this really is important for you to understand. And it's interesting. I hope you find it as interesting as I do. I think traditional Chinese medicine really shines in allowing your women's health concerns, so whether that be your painful periods, your crazy PMS, whatever that might be, to be simplified. And not simplified in a way that we're diminishing the very real pain that you are experiencing, but simplifying in a way that you can understand what's going on without needing crazy medical terminology or I or addressing everything that's going on separately. We are now putting things into patterns to help you understand. So let's get back to this blood stagnation and chi stagnation, emotional stagnation. What is stagnation? Okay, that's our first step. So stagnation really just means that things are not flowing well. And so when things aren't moving well, whether that be blood or chi kind of being like vital, we can translate it as vital air. So it's really like energy moving through your body. Chi stagnation and blood stagnation, um, yeah, it really just means that things are not flowing well so that they get stuck. Things aren't moving, they get stuck. So when we think about something getting stuck, if we thought about something getting stuck in our body, we'd probably feel it there and it wouldn't feel so good. So when this happens, it creates this pressure, this buildup that can lead to the development of endometrial lesions, of cysts, of fibroids. So all of these things are rooted in blood stagnation. And that, of course, is going to lead to pain. If you think about it, even just like when you're digesting something and something gets stuck, it hurts. Like when you have a bloating, something like that, we can think about it that way. Or perhaps you think about like if you take a bite of food and it goes down the wrong way, right? And then it hurts because it's stuck where it shouldn't be. So that is really this root of endometriosis and again of fibroids and of cysts is things aren't flowing well. They get stuck when this happens. There's pressure, there's buildup. It creates lesions, cysts, fibroids, and pain. So, some other signs of blood stagnation that you might track in yourself to begin to understand your own underlying patterns are sharp, stabbing, or fixed pain. It's especially going to be pelvic or menstrual pain in this scenario. Dark or clotted menstrual blood. So, remembering that your blood should be fresh red and it should have no clots. That really is what's normal to have no clots, fresh red blood. Irregular cycles, especially fibroids, can really create long cycles and make if you're charting your fertility awareness method chart, actually look like you're pregnant. It can, yeah, really create irregular cycles. Because if you think about it, blood and chi aren't flowing optimally, you're not going to ovulate on time, you're probably going to be delayed with your period. Again, possible fibroids, endometriosis, or ovarian cysts. That's a result of long-standing blood stagnation. And then this is one that many of you are probably going to track in yourselves, cold hands and feet. So that makes sense, right? If blood's not flowing properly, it's not going to reach your extremities like your hands and your feet. And also, there's going to be aversion to pressure on the painful area. So it's not going to feel good to push on it if you have blood stagnation. That's a little different with chi stagnation. So if your chi stagnation hasn't progressed to blood stagnation, some pressure to move things might actually feel good. So where does blood stagnation come from? As I mentioned before, there's usually a root cause of chi stagnation or underlying trauma. And even in chi stagnation, that often is a result of underlying trauma. So there really is this big emotional root cause. We're going to get into that, but of course, don't worry. We're going to be getting into the physiological and practical steps to healing, of course, along with the emotional, because I think all of it is really important. I truly believe that we can heal ailments of the mind with the body and ailments of the body with the mind. It goes both ways. So if we think about emotional stagnation, in traditional Chinese medicine, it's understood that emotions are carried in the blood. So if we have unprocessed emotions, the blood is going to stagnate. Stagnation is not moving. That is how growths again form. You could almost think about your emotions like bundled up in your blood. This is very common after trauma, right? Like trauma is something that happens, what is it, too soon, too fast, and without sufficient time to like process it. And it was too much for us. And so this can create this stagnation. And it's not to shame someone, of course, after trauma for not feeling what needs to be felt, but this is kind of an intelligent response of the body if we really think about it, to package that up and place it somewhere to then be released when there is space to release it. And so that is why it's important to then begin to take these physiological and practical steps to begin to show your body, because we can show our body through physiological, practical means that we are safe to release this thing that has gotten stuck. Chi stagnation, of course, can also happen from your environment. So, chi stagnation, we can kind of relate to the liver not processing well. And if you listen to my last episode on, or I feel like it was 3 episodes ago actually, on spring reset for your hormones, I get really into that aspect around the liver and processing hormones through your liver and what signs and symptoms of that are. And that's how we can really think of chi stagnation. So go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. That generally happens from having lots of endocrine disrupting products, chemicals in our environment, as well as, again, I said unprocessed stress. That's also there as well. So now that we have all of this context, let's think about why surgery alone probably wouldn't actually help your pain that much, or if it did, your pain might come back not that long after. So I see this in my practice all the time. I have one client who actually did get surgery to have an endometrial lesion removed. And she felt better for a little bit of time, but then it came back. And she started telling me that she had read stories online. She was reading through Reddit threads and she was reading stories of women having like 12 plus surgeries to remove endometrial lesions. And she was like, I don't want that. Like, what do I need to do to actually begin healing so this doesn't happen again? And that's why we started working together. She wanted to be able to heal on a root cause, because surgery doesn't shift the environment that allowed your endometrial lesions to form. It will remove the lesions, but it won't remove the underlying pattern. And if that pattern is still there, it will keep happening over and over again. You'll keep developing endometrial lesions without deeper lifestyle, gut, etc. changes. This will just keep happening. I think hopefully that makes sense. So you're here listening. You understand probably now why the surgery didn't help you. And maybe you feel a little bit seen. Maybe you feel a little bit hopeful. Maybe you remember that you're not broken, you didn't do anything wrong, your body hasn't betrayed you. But you're like, okay, Natalie, now what do I do next? So here's a couple of things to do instead. You really do have to address, and rather not instead, but as support. So you really do need to address inflammation. Addressing inflammation through your diet and through light exposure are the two avenues I recommend starting with. So as far as your diet goes, be sure to eliminate industrialized seed oils. This is like the highest inflammatory food, and unfortunately, they're everywhere. That's like sunflower oil, canola oil, safflower oil, these types of things, seed oils. Anything that comes from a seed. They're highly inflammatory for your body because they're processed in a very industrial way. Pretty much any restaurant cooks with them. A lot of people think like grapeseed oil is healthier than, cooking with butter, grass-fed tallow from beef. It's really not. You want to focus on actually saturated fats, not these polyunsaturated fats, aka PUFAs. Doesn't mean you can never go out to eat, but if you're really wanting to heal, I definitely encourage taking a break from these oils and probably just not including them at all. You also want to eliminate non-organic food, really making sure you very much prioritize that, and industrialized meat. So you want to be getting grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs and chicken, etc., etc., wild-caught fish, and also excessive refined sugar or processed food. So really trying to eliminate that processed food as much as possible. You don't need to totally eliminate sugar. Maple syrup, honey, great options. But refined sugars like cane sugar, probably good to take a little break from. You also want to address inflammation through light exposure. So that means really regulating when you're getting sunlight and when you're getting blue light. A couple of tips for that would be when you first wake up in the morning, before even touching your phone to even like see what time it is or send a message or check your messages, go immediately outside, even for just 5 minutes. Put your face in the sun. That's going to tell your circadian rhythm to turn on, and it's going to allow you to have a proper hormonal flow, which is going to reduce stress and reduce inflammation. The other thing would be you want to make sure to stop getting blue light. So, looking at screens, TV, laptop, phone, ideally like 2 hours before bed. And that sometimes feels challenging for people if they have a lifestyle habit of watching a show before bed. And like there's always ways to work around that. I tend to wear red light glasses. You can get those from companies like Bon Charge. I'm sure there's other ones too. That's just the brand that I've used. And you can wear those for 2 hours before bed. And what that's going to do is it's going to, again, not disrupt your circadian rhythm and disrupt your hormone production, and which leads to inflammation. That one's actually really important because it's such a common habit that many of us have of like scrolling in our phone in bed, whether that's in the morning or at night. And you really want to try to kick that. And I promise you, you can. Um, the next thing we want to do is support the liver. So, again, you want to listen to that spring reset for your hormones episode to get the full download on that. But one thing that's really great for endometriosis specifically is using castor oil topically over your liver. This helps regulate your immune function, and it will help start to break down the adhesions and the scar tissue. So, if you want to learn more about how to do a castor oil pack, I believe I do speak to that in the liver episode too. It's also something that I provide a lot of support for in my one-on-one practice. Vaginal steaming is really nice for reducing pain. Less of a root cause thing, I will say that. It's more of something that's going to help you get out of pain, but help you get out of pain fast. And you want to steam a few days before your flow, ideally, and also a few days after. But the before part is really important because when you bring that steam up into your pelvic space, you're allowing things to move. So you're essentially helping to remove the stagnation. I'll put links in the show notes for my favorite vaginal steaming products and my favorite castor oil products. I have discount codes for each of them. I believe the vaginal steaming one for Katara is Moon Baby Love, and that'll get you 15% off. And the one for Queen of Thrones castor oil packs is Natalie E for 10% off. But I'll put that in the show notes to make sure that's right. If this episode is feeling helpful for you, I encourage you to check out the show notes and read more about Moon Cycle Mastery because it might be perfect for you. Moon Cycle Mastery is the blueprint of my pain-free period protocol that I created based on years of healing my own cycle challenges and supporting clients who struggle with period pain, endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, PCOS, just like you might be. Rather than overwhelm you with a ton of information, because I'm sure you've already done that to yourself, Moon Cycle Mastery is going to take you through phase by phase, just like the moon, the exact steps to take in order to clear these endometrial lesions, to clear period pain, and to clear PMS symptoms. It's honestly the program that I wish I had when I was trying to heal my painful periods and looking in a million different directions to do so. It's a fully comprehensive approach equipped with videos, journaling prompts, meditations, practical steps to take, and more. So you can check out all the details about Moon Cycle Mastery in the show notes. And let's get back to the show. Okay. Again, this nervous system piece is huge. You want to support your nervous system by allowing space for processing emotions. And I want to make sure to say first that processing your emotions doesn't just have to be like going to the corner and crying. Sometimes all of these other things that we're doing, eating stable meals, getting outside, reducing your blue light, taking care of yourself, that's going to all of a sudden create a sense of safety in your body so you have more capacity to meet an emotion when it arises so that you're not just constantly in survival mode, fight or flight. There also is a practice called somatic experiencing if you have a lot of underlying trauma that I really recommend. It's a body-based approach to slowly, in a nervous system way, kind of bringing up old things and feeling them to heal them. Yeah. With endometriosis clients, I generally also have a pretty strong use and protocol with custom Chinese herbs based on their tongues, based on the kind of other symptoms, their constitutional tendencies to support moving blood. So you can always apply to work one-on-one with me if that's something you'd like to do. One supplement, I also work with some targeted supplements, and one supplement that I will mention here that most women with endometriosis can really benefit from is NAC. So there are studies showing that NAC taken 4 days on and 3 days off can help reduce endometrial lesions and inflammation. So the dose you'd want to take varies, but I usually recommend, what is it, 1500 milligrams, so 1.5 grams. Well, that is a good baseline of things to start. And don't overwhelm yourself. When I work with clients, we usually do 3 to 5 shifts at a time. And you want to make sure anything that you're doing it for at least 3 months. So take a couple of these suggestions, maybe no more than two to begin, and start implementing them. See if you can slowly change these diet and lifestyle and otherwise habits so that we can get you pain free. That really matters. You deserve to live a full life and create some patience. These changes do usually tend to take 3 to 6 months to start noticing things, but you're working at a deep level, and so that matters. If you've been feeling like this, one of my clients once said to me, as she was like, "What's going on with my body? I need to figure out why this is happening so I can figure out what to do. It's a constant every day. What am I going to be dealing with today? And I don't even have the energy to do anything about it." If you've been feeling that, I hope that this episode has brought you some groundedness to the barrage of health information out there and this sense of urgency of you need to fix it right away. Um, and I never want to diminish the real pain someone is in with endometriosis. I've seen that. And I also want to say these deeper changes take time and you deserve that time. As always, I'm here to provide you with simple ways to support your body so that your path to pain-free periods does not burn you out, but rather gives you your life back so that you can feel normal again. If this episode has resonated with you, I have more resources for you to dive deeper in the show notes. There's always my free guide that I have on the 5 habits that you might be doing daily that are making your period pain worse. We touched on a couple of them today, namely the phone thing, but there's a few more in there, so you can get that for free below. If you want to go even deeper, my course, Menstrual Cycle Mastery, is in the show notes as well. And that is my complete step-by-step guide to healing painful periods and PMS naturally. It contains all of these root cause approaches in more depth with an actual plan for you to follow. Right now, as I'm recording this, I'm actually full with one-on-one clients, but I'll drop a link down there and you can apply to join the waitlist for when a spot opens up. All right, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to hear how this episode resonates with you. So you can also find in the show notes my Instagram handle, and feel free to reach out to me there. You can also find lots of free content on my Instagram to get you started as well. So here's to your healing. Thank you for tuning in to the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories and teachings forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it can reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can always find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle with the best women in the world, in the show notes, and you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions for your specific needs, as well as any workshops or courses I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.